implantation of grafts can be done in different methods. You have pre-made slits where slits are made and then graft insertion goes on. You have the stick and place method, and then you have the implanter method. The implanter method is probably one of the best methods because you are not touching the root. See, our aim in implantation is that we do not want to do what we are seeing in the first screen. We do not want to touch the root over here because whenever we are going to implant like this, we are going to end up damaging the roots. Usually in a pre-made slit, the implantation is done by the technician, so you have absolutely no control how much pressure he is putting over here. So these blunt implanters are very popular nowadays. In that, you have this kit, which is a very good blunt implanter, where what we do is we hold the graft from the upper part and just push it in. It is like threading a needle. It is as simple as that. With time, your technicians will become very fast in implanting with a keep. Now, keep is actually what we are using nowadays, but we used to initially use it in Amrita. We used to take that 18 number or 19 number needle and we used to, make a hole in the needle and use that to, use a no root touch technique. These are all modified versions of the same thing. Uh, this is a stick and place method. This is showing a stick and place. A hole is made and immediately the graft is inserted. The aim again here is to give a very natural hairline and to give a very dense. Uh, it should be dense enough. There is something called as a cosmetic density. It should be dense enough to cover the skin. It should look absolutely natural. Nobody should be able to make out that it's a transplanted hair. Now this is another patient where we have done the hair transplant. This is his results. This is showing the result after. This was about 7 to 8 months after the hair transplant. This is another grade 7. Now these are very challenging patients when we have this grade 7. Now we had advised FUT for him because FUT definitely FUT plus FUE combination would give me a larger number of grafts, but he flatly refused. He said you do whatever you want with FUE, and he even refused beard extraction in the first sitting. So we could only provide 2,500 grafts from this area. We could only extract that many. So we implanted in this front area. So this is what the result we were able to give him after the 6 months. He was quite happy with the naturalness and the density, but there was a very big problem that we still had a large area to cover. So we went ahead with the second sitting. This time he was ready to take harvest hairs from the beard. So as we had taken 2,500 from the back side, we took around 1,000, around 1,200 from the back and 1,200 to 1,300 from the beard and transplanted it in this area. So this was his results after the 6 months of second sitting. Now he came back for the third sitting over here. Now I was stuck with this because I could not extract any more grass from here. I was afraid that I would leave a moth-eaten appearance. And at the same time, a large number of grafts I had taken from the beard. So I was afraid that I would end up scarring, putting a lot of scars over here. So in the third sitting, I took a hairs from his chest. But unfortunately, he did not have many hairs on the chest. He had about 1,000 grafts which I could have extracted. But he agreed to that also. So this was after, the third sitting. This is where we were able to provide him. But you see, this is where we fell short. You see this area. This is where we could not cover because lack of donor area. But this is just to show that the whole thing has been done only with FUE. Had he agreed to FUT even in the third sitting, I would probably had made a, I would have given a better justice over. I would have done a better justice over here than what I have done presently. Now, these are a lot of cases which we see like revision cases. Now, this was a patient who had undergone his first transplant surgery when he was around 22 or 23 years old. Now, if you see, this is all the previous transplant. The hairs in the previous transplant have stayed, but unfortunately ended up losing the hairs on the backside. So this is what is the problem, if you do it in a young patient. And if you see the hairline is so very unnatural appearing hairline. So what we had to do is like if you see you can see the previous FUT scar and you can see this donor fringe which has become so small. So I could extract about 2,500 to 3,000 grafts from here. And what I had to do is I had to take, if you can see, this is the close-up view of the front area where I've used, FUE technique to remove some of the grafts. Because his hairline was, absolutely straight, I had to break up the hairline. So I had broken up the hairline and I had added grafts on the backside. So this is what I was able to give him after about, say, 6 months of the surgery. So this is my operating theater. This is where I work. This is my clinic. This is where I'm sitting right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth, for exhaustive discussion. You have actually, I think you have actually told in detail about all the steps in hair transplant. I'll just check out if there are any questions. The chat box. No, currently I think there are no questions in the chat box. But I would like to ask you a couple of questions, or rather, uh, uh, put it
Yes,
this
sir.
way.
Yes.
Because now, see, the thing is, no, you have made it look so simple. You have made it, even though you have actually told all the latest things, but everything seems to be rosy and good. And I think, yes, it is to a certain extent. But at the same time, people should not just think that, oh, it's only this much and then get into trouble. One question I would want to put it to you upfront is, no, see, there were actually, unfortunately, two casualties, I think, in the Indian scenario in the last, I think, 2 years or 3 years or so.
Yes, sir.
And there were a lot of discussions in the forums. What was actually the reason for that? And
Yes.
one of the things that could you just highlight on any of those things?
Yeah. Both I can highlight.
Yeah.
Actually, the first one was in Chennai. He was, I think so, 23 or 24-year-old medical student who went in for this hair transplant with around 2,500 or something odd grafts. Now there was a detailed discussion of this in when I went to this ISHRS conference in Las Vegas, mortality and morbidity meet. There was a detailed discussion, and Dr. Anil Garg had presented about that. Now the ultimate conclusion was there was either a chance of an infection, it was an infection which led to that thing, or they say that it could probably be some kind of a food induced reaction. In between the surgery the patient had some food and he developed some reaction to that, but which is less likely in Indian scenario. Probably in the western scenario that could probably be more common because but in Indian scenario I feel that is less likely. It was more like an infection, and that it was done in a chain of clinic. It was done in a place where multiple surgeries happen over time. There was not a particular doctor to look after whether by infection ho raha hai. The surgical standards were compromised. Probably that is one of the reasons. So that makes it very important to understand that hair transplantation has to be done in a proper operative unit setup.
Correct.
We are surgeons, and at any point compromising on that would be a very big mistake, because most of them believe it is a superficial surgery, nothing happens. It is not true. Even a small error would lead to an infection, a very bad infection. And if the patient is diabetic and if it has missed your notice, you will end up in trouble if it is not in an operative setup. So that is the first thing. The second case Hello.
Yes, Kiran.
Yeah, the second case which happened, the second case where that person expired. Now, what happened is that the hair transplant started. It was a case in Mumbai where the hair transplant started, I think so, in the evening, somewhere around 6 o'clock or something. Investigations were done just about an hour or 2 hours before that, and surgery lasted till around 12:31 in the night. Now, this is, what you can say is that an elective surgery starting at 6 p.m. is a little bit difficult. So many times the patients will pressurize us. कि सर कर दो ना क्या है पीछे से निकाल के डालना ही है ना do it at 6. I will get the reports. I am so healthy. I can walk around. I run 10 kilometers a day. All those blah 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 that they will start. They will pressurize you like anything to the surgery immediately. We need to control that urge. It is absolutely mandatory to get all the investigations, get the physician fitness. We have started involving the physician in all the cases over here, whether the patient is a 23-year-old person or a 63-year-old guy, whoever it is. We involve the physician, and we are so surprised. We have seen so many young patients who are hypertensive. They come to us with 160 100 blood pressures. Imagine putting adrenaline in him without knowing and then going ahead with the surgery is a blunder. Now, probably what happened in this patient is that he started developing ear pain on the left side. Left ear, he had started developing pain at around 10, 11 p.m. or something. And I think so that is the time they gave painkillers and continued, but that was a time to stop and evaluate the pain. That I think was not done. Sir, what are your views? What was your take on that particular case?
Yeah, that could be one of the reasons. And the important thing that I want to stress is no, the use of the lignocaine and Edrenal. So again, specifically, I'm not talking about these two cases. Again, that is one place where I see, that like people don't keep a limit on the amount of things they are actually going to use, amount of lignocaine that they're going to use. So that is again one place. I think before a tragedy strikes, I think we should actually address these areas also. So, like I think what Kinner would be saying, uh, the amount of your local anesthetic that you have, that you're going to take, you should actually foresee, okay, this is the amount I'm going to take. I'm going to use minimum amount only. I would be spreading it over the next, say, 7 hours or 8 hours. So if more is required, I would stop the procedure at that time and then probably advise the patient to come over on another day to get rest of the things done. So that definitely would be a very safe thing to do to avoid any casualties. Isn't it so?
Absolutely true. Absolutely, absolutely. In our clinic, what we have made it like we make a tumescent, and we have fixed the amount of tumescents that we are going to use. Whether it is 2000 grams, 3000, 4000 grams, whatever it is, our quantity of the anesthetic agent which is going to be used is fixed. We never cross it. If needed, as you said, we will call the patient the next day.
Yeah.
It is absolutely mandatory to play it safe because this is one place where people can go wrong.
Yeah. Dr. Nishant has asked a question. Sir, could you suggest a few books to read on hair transplant?
Yeah, so there is this book by Dr. Ungar, Dr. Walter Ungar. It is probably the Bible of hair transplant. But the issue with that book is it's become too old now, and the concepts are like way back. The things have changed a lot. So, but you need basics. The basic part is very well covered in Ungar. And the second book I would recommend is Dr. Lamb. Dr. Sam Lamb has written, it's over three books on it, 3 volumes. Those books are very good. And Dr. Venkat Raman Mysore has written another book, which is in the Indian scenario, is an excellent book, which covers probably a large part of the, hair transplant. So these 3 books, if you read, it's more than enough to start you are at the place where you can, the theory part of it.
Yeah, Kinner, I would like to add one more thing, Kinner. Actually, just very recently, Dr. Anil Garg, who's kind of a maverick in hair transplant, he has done a lot of research in hair transplant. He has also got a lot of awards in the international forums in hair transplant. he has actually come out with a book along with, I think,
Robert True.
Robert True, and I think another 20 odd other guest faculty from all over the world. So this book's name is Practical Guide to Hair Transplantation, and currently it is available for 6,000 rupees, and I think he's giving a discount of 30% discount or something like that. So I would actually put that up also in the in our WhatsApp group, so that people who are interested would actually go through it. And I'm sure that that particular book is going to be fantastic. It has got again multiple videos also along with it. It's got 53 videos, and so you are going to get a treat. I'm sure that any person who's actually going to start off hair transplant should be reading his book, because he is a person whose concepts are perfect, is very good, and he keeps innovating every day, every day, every day. If you see him operate a month back, and now he would be doing something new. So that is the kind of person he is. I think you should be reading that book also if possible.
Yeah, I actually had a word with him a few days back. What he told me was his concept was that he does not want anybody, like, people go to conferences and workshop. He said that wo jo need hai na, that will vanish after this, after you get this book. So he has all the authors are all standard, and he's used videos of all the authors. So I'm really excited to read that book.
Yeah. So before we actually move on, actually, okay, Dr. Sudhir has also asked another question: how to ensure about inclusion of sebaceous glands in eccentric hair follicle extraction by FUE technique?
Can you come again? How to?
Yeah, how do you ensure that the sebaceous glands are included when you are actually going for eccentric hair follicle extraction? When you are actually going to keep the punch in eccentric
Yeah,
position?
yeah. So what happens is that your target, where you target the graft is something which is, now if you consider your punch circular, your root should be at the lower end. Okay. Now my aim when I'm doing hair transplant is not to take the sebaceous gland. Sebaceous gland is going to be cut. I'm not much bothered about that. My aim is that I do not want to damage the hair follicle.
Can you just do one thing? Can you actually switch on your
I'll do that.
video? So actually, probably you will be able to show them also now if the hair is in this particular position like that, no? So
Yeah.
where you want that, something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So when you're going to go in over here, the chances of you damaging this sebaceous gland is obviously going to be there. We are not going to, be in a position to save this, and that's not our aim. Our aim is to save this guy over here. So if I can go back, yeah. So when I'm suppose if I'm going to target over here, so let's say I use this pen. Okay. So if this is my punch, I want to keep if I know I'm very bad at this. Consider this as a circle.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is, now my aim is कि ये ऊपर का part है. This is the upper part and this is the lower part. My aim is to target the hairs coming out from this area. I will keep my punch like this. So the chances of damage is very less.
Yeah. Kiran, could we add something on the internal angle and the exit angle of the hairs also?
Yeah, the thing about the hairs coming out is when you look at it through a microscope or a loop, this is how the hairs will come. But now what is happening on this side is what is we are interested in. If this is the most ideal situation, you are entering like this is how you are entering. Now there are times when it is like this. These are all Afro-American hairs, The exit angle will be the same as this. But then inside, this is how it is going. Now in this situation, what you need to do is, when you come across this kind of a situation, if you go like this, there is always a chance of damaging these hairs. So in this situation, what is recommended is, suppose if the hair is coming like this, and this guy is going here, we need to start becoming more vertical. Now this has to become more vertical. Now, this is a common problem when you are doing a lot of these hairs which are curly hairs. If you are having a patient, the hairs are curly, then this kind of adjustment would be needed. And it is extremely needed if it is an, Afro-American patients where we operate, where we do two things. One is we increase the size of the suppose if I am using zero point 0.9 normally, I might use one number and I would increase this angle. These are the two modifications I will do if the curl increases.
Yeah. Another question to add on would be, say, let us say, for a regular hair transplant you're doing, and then you've had a transaction, say, at the bulb level or so. What would
Yeah.
you do with the graft? Would you throw it off, or would you actually keep it back? And if you're keeping it back, what would be the reason for that?
Okay, if I'm doing a hair transplant and if I find the bulb is smashed, that normally happens. This is the bulb, and if I find that the bulb has been smashed, then what we do is we keep those grafts separately. We do not include them in our normal count because the chances of that graft emerging out is very less. But nevertheless, I don't throw it away. What I do is that suppose if this is the C shape where I'm going to transplant, I use all the healthy grafts in the front area. Probably these guys will, if I have a few of these guys, they would go in this area on the back side.
Yeah.
There's no point throwing it away because I mean,
Absolutely. I think there were some studies also showing that if you actually transect a graft, a good follicle, you transect it with the bulge area on one side and the bulb area on the other side, and both would go independently. I think there was a long time back, there was some study like that. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
it would be as healthy as a normal healthy graft.
Sir, there are some units in Turkey and all that. They encourage partial transaction. The
Okay.
concept of partial transaction is if you have partial transaction in then that partially transacted hair, a part of it will grow back in the donor area and a part of
Oh,
it will grow in the recipient area also.
okay.
But what happens is over time we have found out that the growth is very thin. Those hairs
Hmm.
will grow, but they are very thin. So they may not add to the bulk which we need. So there is
Okay.
no point in throwing those things away, obviously, but then you can probably put them in the less strategic areas. The other area where we put them is in these sites. Usually what happens is we are trying to merge like if I have to show another slide, if I show it on a patient. Yeah. So now if you see this area, this is the area where I know I have done lot of, I will merge over here, or here I'm merging with the normal hairs. So probably all the transacted ones or the ones which I have a doubt, I would probably put them over here or somewhere in this region over here. Not so deep, somewhere here, somewhere in this region.
Okay. Another question with the same picture on the background just struck my mind. Let us say that do you have any way of actually putting in the hairs? Because see, the thing is, our what we normally do is like when there is a loss of hair, maybe around 30 or 40,000 grafts are hair follicles are lost. You're trying to reconstruct the 30 or 40,000 hairs with probably 2,500 or 3,000 or maybe 5,000 hairs. So obviously you have to do some tricks of the trade to actually make less hair seems more. So that
Yeah.
again is a very important thing. So are there some ways that you do these things?
Yeah, okay. The thing is that the important thing is okay, when we are going to do this frontal forelock, this frontal area, this is the place where we give maximum concentration. Our aim is to put larger number of twos and threes, especially threes, a large number of threes we put in this area. That is one. The other thing is that instead of using a sagittal slit, we can start using a coronal slit. Now, when we use a coronal slit, when the hairs come out, they splay out like this. So they give a more, natural and a more, overlap. Especially when you do a coronal slit, when you've done a coronal slit and when the hair grows, when you look at it straight, they will all look like a single hair standing over there. Whereas in a coronal, you can see the 3 different hairs coming out. So
How do you
this
make
sorry,
how do you make a switch? Do you use a needle or do you use a blade or
I use a needle, sir, and I
needle?
do sagittal. I do a large part of it is sagittal.
Which size needle do you use?
I use 19 number for the single hairs and 18 number for the 2s and 3s.
2s and 3s, and then you use a methylene blue to stain it so that you're able to see it.
Yes,
And
yes. We use a
okay,
methylene blue to stain it, and we use the keep implanter to put the grafts in.
okay,
The other important thing what I have seen is, okay, initially what mistake I used to do is that suppose if I have this needle, if I can show, it's not here. Sorry. Uh, uh, the needle part actually what has happened is, okay, what I have started doing nowadays is, okay, if I can draw the needle and just show 1 second. Now this is, suppose this is the needle. This tip is the culprit. This tip will go and damage the vessels, underlying vessels. So now I measure the graft, the size of the graft, and what I do is that I just go how much is needed. What I put is, suppose I make a hole over here, I make around 10-15 holes. First, I make 10-15 slits. Then I take the grafts. I will usually have the 2s or 3s, and then I try to push the graft completely in. The aim is that the graft should not go inside completely. It should just at that skin level it should stop. Then what I do is, then I take a tape and I mark it out over here. So I get an idea. Then my assistant then I would take a break, I come out, and then my assistant would create more number of needles like this with a mark this. So I know that I am not going to exceed. What the biggest problem is that if you exceed, if you go too deep, there will be lot of scarring, and then the growth will suffer.
and there would be a lot of oozing from the that each.
Oozing, yes, oozing also is definitely a problem. Agreed.
Okay, okay. So that is a very important thing. So let us say that we are actually done FUE, and then if we are finding that there is capping, is there some ways that you can still extract those grafts? Capping has occurred, but can we still extract them? Do you recommend
I
some manual
I
punch? Yeah.
I just go back in and then take a punch and put it more inside.
Okay, with a regular, with your motorized punch, right?
Regular. Is
Okay.
there any other method, sir, which you
No,
use?
no, what I was just thinking, no, because like you said, we sometimes in some cases we definitely would see a lot of capping. But as you rightly said, we do around some 20-30 graphs initially, and like a regular thing, no, we do that, and then we check out if there is capping or not. Capping might be there, sometimes transaction might be there. So if there is capping, then we understand that no, it's not the regular depth that we have to go. We have to go still further deep, like you had told. No?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
after the initial thing, then you understand, okay, we have to go like that, and then we do that. But again, if capping happens, I was just struck me that probably we could actually use the manual punch and then do, because nowadays we don't use a manual punch at all. So maybe we could use a manual punch to actually go further inside. But why not with
Yeah,
a race punch also? It's
yeah.
possible.
Then that's a good idea. It's better to go probably with a manual punch because chances of damage to the lower part is less. But all these things has changed after Mamba because
Yeah.
in Mamba you have depth control.
Okay.
So every patient individually I can control the depth, say what depth I need to go.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage. Before, actually, what used to happen is that I used to, if I get a patient where if I have to go deep inside, like suppose if there is a patient where I need to go till, suppose, say I need to go more, like, more than normal. And once I start going in this area, I used to end up smashing these roots.
Mm.
So that was a problem, which, I used to find a lot of grafts with smashed roots. But with Mamba, this thing has changed. Mamba, what happens is that even if I have to go inside, I can lower the power over here. Instead of 100 power, I can make it 50.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
can add one more mode over here. Like, this one more mode I can
Yeah.
add over here. I can add more oscillations or more vibration with a lesser power.
What
And
does vibration do?
sorry,
What does vibration do?
Vibration is similar to oscillation, but it is a very fast movement.
Okay.
It's a very fast movement of this one.
So it could be helpful in dislodging the roots
Dislodging. Yeah,
from the fat
exactly.
around that.
Exactly. Exactly. So in between, what used to happen is when I used to use the regular motor, once in 2 3 months, I used to find a patient where I needed that 5 mm punch and then go deep inside till the root, find smash roots. Even if I'm not using 5 mm, but then I had to go deep in. But after and those patients I have seen that results always used to be a little bit so. That problem used to be there in those patients. But after shifting over to Mamba, then that issue I have not faced at all. Like now it's all like taken care by this machine only.
Okay. Dr. Srividya has asked a question. In 5 to 7 years, when density decreases, will transplant be an option? If there is going to be a transplant, will the donor area be with the scalp again?
Yeah, very nice question. Because what happens is as this is a progressive thing, so the chances of that patient losing the hairs is obviously there. Even after, like, suppose I have transplanted this guy over here, but there's always a chance that he will end up losing these hairs. So the question is what to do at the second time. Like, if you imagine everybody is going to be this bald, from aage se piche yahan tak hai. So till here this guy is bald. So the second of then you cannot, then you have the option of doing FUT. Usually once you have done FUE, suppose in the first sitting, then you have always an option of doing FUT, which will give you more number of grafts, and you can use the body hairs also. But to do again all the hairs from the FUE and from the scalp is less likely.
Yeah.
Given the Indian scenario and the densities. So the answer to the question is that we might have to shift over to FUT or to body hair transplant.
Yeah. Or maybe a combination of FUT and body hair also, right?
Exactly. Combination of all the three, in fact. A few from the scalp, FUT, few from the scalp and body.
Yeah. And another thing that we were also doing is, normally we actually give a frontal area and the first centimeter or 2 centimeters, we give a good density, like say 50 grams per square centimeter. So what we are doing is that we extend it. If the patient is a right-handed patient, we extend this increased density zone to the left side of his the scalp posteriorly also. The idea is that what happens is that you're going to have a lot of grafts, thick hair over there, and that would be the area where the partition happens. So because these people, the right-handed person would have a partition on the left side, and a left-handed person would be having a partition on the right side. That's normally what is seen. Yeah, exactly. In that area, we would actually increase the density to the same density that we keep in the front also. So
Agreed.
yeah, it's basically these small tricks of the trade to actually with less to get more, that kind of a thing.
Yeah,
So
and the the most experimental area, if I want to say, like there was a time where I used to shift over from sagittal. I tried coronal and a lot of things. So this area I always consider as the experimental area. Not, I won't come till here, probably somewhere till here. Because whatever you do over here, all these hairs are going to cover
correct.
this area. So if you have something new to try out, you can probably try out over here.
True. Yeah. So there's another question. Like you were talking about the torque. That torque has to be perfect. That the minimum torque that is required to get the hairs out. How do you decide practically? How do you decide that minimum torque?
What we do is there are two things over here. This is actually an old presentation. Torque actually depends upon the force, and revolutions per minute is a different thing altogether. Now, if we are talking about our regular motor, the micro motor, we cannot change the torque. We can only change revolutions per minute. So what I do is that when I used to use that motor, I keep bare minimal revolutions per minute. And then suppose if I'm finding it difficult, if I have to push myself in, I don't like that, then I would increase the revolutions per minute till that time that it goes in smoothly.
Yeah. The hair that hairs that grafts should not twist inside the
Yeah,
inside the punch, right?
yeah,
So when you take out that, it should not it should not be in a twisted manner also. I think
And why this is important for us as plastic surgeon is because I think so when we do mandible, we start off in the other way. We are going with the maximum force in, right?
yeah.
But in this, like suppose if I'm doing a fibula, I know that I'm going to keep the torque, maximum, like revolutions is maximum. But in this, when I'm doing hair, it's the opposite. It's the minimum and then I keep increasing.
Is there some tricks to actually keep the pain during the injection, the initial injection, no, to the bare minimum?
Yeah, so like what I think so we used to do in Amrita also, we use a vibration. Like suppose what I do is that I use a vibration and then I use ice. Initially, I ask my assistant to numb this area with ice, and then I use a vibration when I'm going to inject. First, I usually inject in this supraorbital area, and then I do the rest of the other areas.
Yeah. Then another thing you were actually discussed in detail about anterior hairline, because that is the most important thing that decides on how your hairline is going to look like. So you talked about that 6 to 7 centimeters from the glabellar areas where you are going to have the anterior hairline. How do you this particular thing? How do you decide on the lateral extent?
Lateral extent is again. I have this particular markers that come. In the market you get these
Yeah.
C-shaped markers. Okay, so I use that kind of an aid actually. So before I used to do freehand. When I used to do freehand, I used to the angle over here. I try to keep minimum. Before I used to what I used to do is I used to take it till somewhere here. you
Mm,
know and this is more natural actually. This is more, the most ideal is that if I could go till here.
yeah.
But then what I could see is that after doing transplant also, if I am doing it for a grade 2 patient, and if I keep it like this, the chances of him being very happy with the hair transplant is very less.
Mm,
And then I started observing a large number of these hairlines. If you see young people hairlines, if you see a 15, 16, 20-year old or a good hairline, the hairline goes something like this only.
mm,
It goes something like this. I mean,
mm.
if I bring it too forward like this, also may will make it look unnatural. So I have somewhere stuck to somewhere in between these two things I have come. And this kind of aids helps me a lot in
Yeah.
deciding the whole thing. And of course, patient preference also. There was a time when I never used to respect that. Frankly, I used to go by the book and I used to be like, it has to be here only. It has to be very high. In the books, it's written around 7 centimeters. I used to keep it at 8 also. But then, if I look at those cases today, I feel that if I was a patient, I would not have been happy with this hairline. Then, over time, I've started bringing my hairline down.
Mm,
But bringing down is a little bit tricky. So, over time, you should bring it down. Initially, the safest thing is to keep it up
yeah.
and keep it more deep. That would be the safest thing to do.
Yeah. The normally the width of your front area for a normal shaped skull person would be approximately 15 centimeters. And suppose you are actually going to put in 50 grafts per square centimeter, you require 750 grafts for the first centimeter. So for every centimeter that you're bringing it down, so you're looking at something like 750 grafts. So that is also something I think that you have to keep in mind. Obviously, we would not be giving the same density throughout. Slightly
Throughout,
big,
yeah.
yeah. But
So,
then,
so the density again, the density part is that if we take this whole area, if we take this, if I have to take this whole area which I have marked, it would be around 75 centimeters square.
yeah,
This would be somewhere around 75 centimeters square.
mhm,
So if I were to do the math, and if I make an average of 40 into 75 would be around 3000.
yeah,
So this is what I'm looking at. And of course, the density is maximum only in this area.
mm,
This is the area where probably somewhere till here. Yeah. This is the area where probably he has the maximum density. And as I start going towards this area, I start decreasing the density.
yeah. Could you give some tips on temporal triangle? Because obviously, if you put a regular graft over there, especially twos and all, the temporal triangle would look
Will look very bad.
usually very dense. It wouldn't look very natural. No?
Okay. So what we do for temporal triangle is that there are a lot of, if you go to the textbook, then there will be one line joining from here to here, but practically, actually, if you look at it, the patient will definitely will have some kind of hairs which are left back. You can probably use those hairs as your guide. So what we usually do is that this is the area, like even if you see this patient has lost hairs, but you can always see that there is some amount of grafts over here. Now the temporal triangle is a very tricky thing. Why it is very tricky is that if the you have to put the singles over here, and it has to be flush. It has to be flush with the skin. So what I usually do is I bend the needle like this. Okay, this is the sharp end. I usually bend the needle like this and I go flush over here. Initially, I used to go in the direction, like I used to go like somewhere like more down. But now I have started going more posterior, because what I have observed is when the patient naturally has hairs over here, are very slow growing. Now, despite we would probably take hairs which we are going to put over here from the lower part of the back, the nape, somewhere near the nape. But still, the nape hairs are fast growing. They are not as slow growing as the natural hairs which we see over here. So what I do is that despite taking nape hairs, I try to angle it little bit more posteriorly, so they start merging with this. Now the problems and issues which we have over here is, okay, now these hairs can become curly, one. Second, if the angle is not very flat, they would, pop out like this, like that Einstein, you will start having this kind of that will look very unnatural. So that should never happen. And the third thing is that he should know that he would have to, probably, cut those hairs once in a while over here when he goes for a haircut. And the other unique problem that happens over here is that if you don't merge it with the hairs on the backside, this one will become an island. Over
Yes.
time, he will start losing hairs from this side and this will become an island. I've seen so many patients, 3 years, 4 years back, they are transplanted. They would have just one, fringe over here. This would become an island. It looks very bad.
Yeah. Dr. Sudhir has asked another one. He wants to know any tips in extracting long hair.
I can show you a long hair. You want to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of long hair FUEs, because long hair is something which is there is an in Mamba, there is, it gives you this option of doing long hair also. This is, I have not shaved, and this is the long hair FUE which I'm doing, this patient. I'm using this comb to pull the hairs up. I'll show you some of the graphs also which come out. These are the graphs. These are the long hair graphs. You can see them. Oh, sorry. Yeah. You can see this. These are the long hairs. These are the graphs that are coming out. I used a white background. Sorry for that. And so this was the patient in which we did non-shaven, like long hair non-shaven FUE. You can see this is the extraction that is going on. Now we angle the graphs which are going upwards. This line, all the hairs which are going up is what I aim at. Now there are certain things to be noted when we do long hair. Usually I don't prefer to insert the long hairs the way they are. Despite the fact that I get it, long hairs are coming out, I usually trim the hairs and insert them. What happens is that what happens is initial patients, I started putting long hairs, but then they get stuck with the normal hairs. When the patient starts moving his normal hairs, these grafts get, they get they get pulled out of the graph of their slit. So what I do nowadays is that despite taking out these kind of long hairs, I would cut and then I would use it. And then I would trim it down and then I would insert it.
Is there any increase loss of hair in that initial hair falling out, no, after a month or so? Is that more with long hair than when you compare it with the regular FUE grafts?
No, it is the same, sir.
Telogen effluent, it's the same.
Telogen is the same.
Okay, okay. So, could you comment anything about that technique where you directly implant the hairs, that you take it and implant it immediately, you know?
Yeah.
Where some companies, big companies, are advertising big time.
So our aim, this is not my video. This video I've just downloaded it. I'll just show you this. But this is more or less similar thing to what we do. Sorry, it's not right. So what we are doing is our aim in implantation of the grafts is that it should be done immediately. We do not wait for the grafts staying out for long. So we start putting the grafts inside once. As soon as we start removing it, we start putting it in. Yeah, something like this. You have the implantation happening simultaneously. Okay. So the advantage of implanting it simultaneously is, you are wasting, you're not allowing the grafts to stay out. The lesser the number of time the grafts are out, the better it is. Probably for an hour, 1.5, 2 hours is probably the max they should be out, not beyond that. It is probably a crime to keep the grafts out beyond that. The best thing is to keep the patient in left lateral. You extract from one side. What I do is I make pre-made slits already. Keep the patient in left lateral. From one side, I am doing the extraction. From the other side, my assistant is starting to put the grafts inside. And once I complete one side, I advise them to put all the grafts in, all the doubles, triples, and only then I go on to the other side.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. And do you use any PRP, PPP, anything like that? No?
Yeah, PRP is done compulsorily. PRP is done for all patients during transplant. What I have seen is that it helps in wound healing. It helps in the attachment of the grafts and the body. It gives nourishment to the transplanted hairs, and it gives nourishment even to the the native hairs which the patient is having.
Yeah. And PPP, are you using PPP to store the grafts or something?
No, sir, I have not been using. My aim is to put the grafts inside. I don't like any storage media at all.
Really?
The
Storage
best
in the
storage
sense,
is putting it.
even when you're actually extracting it, you have to put it into some container, no?
Yeah, so what we do is that we put it in this solution of RL with Xylocard.
Okay.
Now when they do renal transplant, no, they use RL, Xylocard, heparin, and I think so some other sodium chloride or bichloride or some one of the things they use.
Okay.
Now we do not need sodium bichloride because itni acidity nahi hone और we don't need heparin. So Xylocard is a membrane stabilizing agent, and it has an effect similar, they said, to the hypothermosol.
Okay. Yeah. So that is it. And I think I think more or less you have covered the entire thing, because you have actually done a fantastic job in actually answering almost all the questions, that we had asked you. I think it has come out really well. I'm sure that many people would be interested in going ahead and doing that. I think that's all. That no other questions have actually come up in the chat box. So it was fantastic having you, Dr. Kinner, with us and sharing your experience. I'm sure that many people would be benefited by your wise words, and I'm sure that you're going to see a lot of people who will download it or would be actually seeing this video also later. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you,
Kinner,
sir.
for joining us.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, sir. It was a nice time.